Hi y'all, welcome to the 14th episode of my Hypertravel with Hardie video series in which we'll travel the world as I did for the last 15, 20, 25 years. And we'll see the world through the pictures I took and through the narrative which I'll provide. First, some backstory though. My first trip to Nepal in Kathmandu was around 1994 when I made a brief trip there as a world handicrafts dealer for only a few days to shop for wool sweaters to complement my alpaca product line from South America, especially Bolivia, which was the staple of my business for at least about a decade, from around 1987 to around 1997, until a totally different Southeast Asian wood carving line largely took its place for me. So I spent less than a week in Kathmandu, seeing almost nothing, not even a mountain, until my plane left the city, staying in a neighborhood that I couldn't even find today, now knowing the city well, even if I wanted to, with only vague references to ancient roads that I could only navigate by dead reckoning. I having no map. I'm not even sure if Tamil was a tourist area then, but I know that I wasn't there. Freak Street either, though I suppose that I at least got a glimpse of the classic 70s, 80s era of that region before they shut down the hashish shops. Oh well, I enjoyed Latin America in those years instead. Fast forward to the year 2016, and it's time to revisit Kathmandu. And I don't care much about the sights as such anyway, especially since I'm here to attend a Buddhist monastery. But not much anyway, regardless. I'm pretty much from the Long March school of backpacker tourism, which relies on random encounters for little thrills, like the little girl who takes my hand and walks with me a block or two, or the shoeshine boy, complete with story, enough to double up his pay since he's going to take it upon himself to repair my classic leathers anyway. My days here are largely scheduled around the power outages. In Nepal, getting a good Wi-Fi signal is the least of your problems. Getting electricity is the real challenge, with power out typically half the day. What decade is this? What century? About the only thing predictable about the blackouts is they won't occur during the night. Stock up on it when it's available. But you'll have plenty of power while you sleep, if the drunks downstairs out on the street will let you. This is party central, for Nepal at least. Tamil is, even if mild by Bangkok standards. A band for hire plays an early Beatles hit. Can you imagine someone playing Al Jolson to us back in the 60s or 70s? Durbar Square charges $10 for admission now, to all pale faces, but this can be hacked. Just pick an entrance other than the Broadway leading from Tamil Street and avoid the guy who wants to show you Kumari the Virgin Princess. And wear a baseball cap like the stars do in Hollywood. And don't ask questions. It worked for me twice. Harder still is avoiding Tamil while staying there. The noise and crowds get loud and old. Think I'll stay at Freak Street next time. Rooms for $4. The temps are nice this time of year though, a bit rainy, but not overbearing and fairly predictable. The clouds roll in every mid-afternoon. I'm going vegetarian again for the first time in 2 years. No buff, no buff. And that's easy to do here, just like India, where every meal is a humongous pile of rice surrounded by minimal amounts of veggies. The farther from ground zero, Tamil, the cheaper the price, as little as 35 cents per place of chow mein. They have good coffee here and peanut butter for a reasonable price too. I'm good. Pokhara is Nepal's second city. And such a change from the first that it's almost hard to believe that they're in the same country. Where Kathmandu is noisy and chaotic, Pokhara, pronounced like a distinctly southern drawled and gooey okra, ya, is chilled and peaceful, almost too tranquil. I start to miss all the chaos and maniac drivers with foot on the gas and hand on the horn. I even had one flashing lights at me, so I stopped in the middle of the road to force him to do the same, just because I could. Of course, I'm talking about Lakeside, where all the tourists and local groovers hang and full of spa-like accoutrements, boutiques and yoga, trekking centers and restos, caffeine and alcohol. But there's another Pokhara too, the original one, just up the road a piece. As high up as you can get in that particular valley and filled with goldsmiths and silver, as opposed to the lakeside scene that tourism built. So I had to go check it out, just to get some traffic to avoid. If nothing else, Lakeside only really comes alive at night, and much of that in second-level clubs and drinkeries, so not immediately accessible to pedestrians. But to call it a little Tamil or second Tamil is a bum rap, as the place is eminently walkable as opposed to the bruised knees and psychological near misses involved in just walking Tamil after dark. And the bus ride Kathmandu to Pokhara is beautiful, if problematic. A round trip is not backtracking, not the first time, of course, since it's an entirely different view, right? But the drive stretches out forever, 1 hour to leave KTM and worse on the return. They stop for lunch twice for the driver to fill his gut free, while passengers mingle listlessly, and trucks pull over to sides of roads with no shoulders, so no shortage of anxiety there. But the real problem is that the last 12 miles, 20 kilometers on the return to KTM takes at least 3 hours due to road work and traffic jams. So plan accordingly, and you'll finally see mountains after 3 weeks, if you know where and when to look. Some in Pokhara. In Kathmandu, you'll only get that at the airport. Now you know. Did I mention that Bhaktapur is the real deal? With cobblestones and muddy streets, jugglers and clowns, musicians and townspeople all gathered in daily celebration, in worship to all gods, deities, and governmental authorities alike, where chaos reigns supreme, especially in the rainy season, the chaos of fuzzy logic and faulty reason. Post hoc ergo propter hoc, begging questions and begging for dollars from unsuspecting tourists, or maybe that was just me. Fast forward to year 2022, and I'm back in Nepal again to spend the winter of 21-22 in prime COVID time with the Omicron variant ascendant. I spent the first month in India, mostly Bodh Gaya, then hightailed it to Nepal to tough it out for the next 2 to 3 months. Kathmandu is cold though, and I'm a Buddhist by this time, so I'm drawn to Lumbini, the Buddha's birthplace, on the border with India, where the temps are moderate, not like the uphill capital. But the fog persisted about a full month before finally lifting, so I got a lot of work done, writing and rewriting my historical novel about the Buddhist pilgrim Phá Hien. Finally, well into February, the temps started rising into the sunny room, getting toasty, complete with mosquitoes. Still, the temps in Kathmandu were chilly but improving. And the lockdown was long gone, so a couple days ago I made the big leap. It took the longest taxi ride of my life so far, a full 9 hours over bumpy roads. I did that because people just won't wear masks on buses, so I don't trust the COVID virus to exempt me from its cruel reach, even if I'm one of its kinder sympathizers, figuring it can probably teach us a lesson or two. So the taxi cost basically the same as a plane, all things considered, and I could stop along the way if I wanted. I didn't. There was nothing spectacular along the road, and much of it I'd already seen coming from Pokhara previously, a fact that I wasn't previously aware of, that I would be retracing some steps. What else? Lumbini is very close to the border with India, so it definitely feels more like that than Little Tibet. In fact, that is one of the prime features of Nepal, that it is something of a Kathmandu sandwich between a slice of Tibet and India. And their food reflects that influence. Also, not surprising since Indians are probably the main tourists when times are normal. Nepalis can party with the best of them also. New Year's Eve, one of the biggies. But weddings every so often. Even the nearby villages get in on the action. Basket weaving is a local craft also, and of high quality. But the Buddhist connection is the big deal here. So Hinduism is not as dominant as usual. And there are Islamic mosques also, with even local saffron-robed Theravada Buddhist monks here too. Back in Kathmandu, there's only one thing left to do, and that's another small trip to the heart of Nepal, the Gurkha heartland, which is who the Nepalis, that Indo-Aryan group, really are, aside from the other immigrant Tibetans and the original Noors and other ancient tribal groups. But the purpose of this trip, this side trip from Kathmandu, was hardly of the lost Indo-Aryan tribes theme. In fact, I doubt that anyone would even consider that a proper theme, since in general, Indo-Aryan people and the larger Indo-European group of which they are a part tend to rule wherever they are found. These pure-blood Indo-Aryan Nepalis are Shudra by caste, the lowest caste of menial labors. How did that happen? In the Vedas, the original Aryans in the Rig Veda were transformed into Brahmins in the later Atharva Veda. So why did these outback Aryans miss the boat and descend the ladder to the status as menial laborers and worse? Worse? Yes, it gets worse, at least in the case of Sindhupalchok, because this is the region of Nepal famed for its women, its trafficked women. Apparently, these girls often end up in the big cities of the region as prostitutes, though I've never seen a local girl on the streets of Kathmandu with a foreigner, at least not in broad daylight. But besides the dark backstory, the main town of Malanchi is pleasant enough, even if the ride to get there from Kathmandu is not for the faint of heart. The ravages of 2021's floods here are still painfully evident. It's only a few hours away, but the road is rough, though it's better than it used to be, apparently. Soon the outback towns that are not suitable for trekking may at least become suitable for exploration by public transport. And for me, that's an interesting development indeed. Because I'm not particularly interested in trekking, at least not the organized kind, but I am interested in remote villages and the culture that sustains them. If you're interested in helping them, let's talk. Finally, back in Kathmandu, I enjoyed the spring weather and awaited my flight back to Europe, then Colombia, then Mexico. Yes, that was the cheapest route back to America. If you like this content, please press like and subscribe, which will help me out greatly, and we can see each other again next week if you're available. I will be. Thank you. Bye-bye.